Global institutions, such as the Atlantic Council is based in Washington, D.C. They're examining ways in which guarantees for climate financing can be placed at the top of the agenda for the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Let's take excerpts from the latest roundtable held on that important issue on Tuesday.
Guarantees. There's a very important shift that's beginning to happen in the MDB systems, and I'd like to take you through that and share with you a little bit what's happening. First, traditionally, we've been a lending institution mostly. And we've been a lending institution because the assumption was there was development finance on one side and there was corporate private finance on the other side, and the two shall remain separate. Over time, clearly, global capital markets have evolved. They are the center of access to finance. And development finance per se has fallen in terms of quantity given the needs. And today what is recognized is that these worlds of development finance and corporate finance are not separate, that it's really an issue of how you engage capital markets depending on your risks. If you can manage the risks, if you can de-risk, you can bring in capital markets into development. And that's really the focus now of a lot of the MDB movements, going from lending institutions to becoming leveraging institutions. How do we become leveraging institutions? And guarantee is an instrument that's extremely important in leveraging capital markets for development. So what do we mean by de-risking private finance? Basically, what one is trying to do is provide some kind of certainty around policy, regulation, and contracts. If you can create certainty around these items, then the assumption is that private finance will follow. There's also political risk insurance, which means against war and civil disturbance. Also, in terms of exchange rate issues, if there are issues that arise when countries begin to provide difficulties in converting the exchange or transfer resources. This whole story of political risk insurance, in addition to contract certainty, regulation certainty, as well as policy certainty. If one can create an instrument that offers this kind of de-risking, then the assumption is private capital can be brought in at scale to deal with the multiple crises of development that we see, whether it's climate, fragility, pandemics, and so on, in addition to the traditional story of development.
I think, first of all, the focus on volume and the need for more volume, right? It's not just a quantity issue. Obviously, we've got to think about quality. But if we can look at the level of volume for the moment, we need more. We need more World Bank. We need more MEGA. We need higher and greater use of these tools. I think the level of need, just in terms of development, traditional development, and the level of crisis at the moment, given the level of fiscal stress, the context in which we're in, and of course the global challenges that we face, including climate. I think the focus of this is the use of guarantees with respect to climate finance. So we don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about the level of need. I think that's been well documented, and finally has become to be understood. And it's great news, I think, that we're at a point where we're looking at how we use all these institutions and all these instruments to sort of get the numbers and get closer to the level of need. And of course, it has to be public and private. So, Janae, exactly what you're saying, it can't just be public money put into these institutions for traditional development. Given the level of need and crisis that we've been through and challenges we face, we have to be very innovative and resolute in looking at how we get the levels of volume, right? So just to focus on guarantees for now, right? So Janae, and I think Ken is going to speak more about MEGA, right, as an instrument offering political risk insurance, right? That's one particular type of guarantee where we're using and leveraging very well public finance, scarce public finance, to maximize bring in private finance. And that's guarantees for particular transactions.
The latest numbers we've seen is that about $260 billion a year is being invested in this transition in emerging markets and developing economies. The IEA estimates that $2 trillion a year is needed by 2030. That's a gap of over $1.7 trillion a year. Now, obviously, the governments can't do that on their own. They do need a massive amounts of new private sector investment. The World Bank proposal is a terrific proposal to work on this. It will enable, if implemented, the World Bank to maintain a leading role in this, to continue to be a catalytic agency in developing these investment programs. It will enable it to work on very, very hard issues, and it's a very substantial amount of money that they're talking about putting in.